You've been across North Melbourne for a number of years now, and it was another week, another significant loss. I know that they've got some problems off the field with their coaching scenario. We'll talk a little bit about Alistair Clarkson here, but they're running out of excuses for loss after loss after loss, Cornesy.
Yeah, so recently you go away from the young players and you're not critical of them because they're finding their way in the game. At a tough footy club, they're not getting a lot of success and wins. So you focus on the senior players and the ones that should be standing up. The first quarter through the midfield, where their good players are playing and where they were competitive in the first half of the year, was a weak performance from midfield. I know that's really strong, but what I'm highlighting is here. Watch the first possession. All of these North win first possession. That's just a more hungry player in Atkins versus Taron Thomas. That's not a talent thing. That's a toughness. That's a competitiveness that Atkins had that Taron Thomas did. First possession here. They've got the footy and they cough it up. Geelong won centre bounce 20-4. And these aren't young players. Not Will Phillips we're talking about. It's Davies Uniacke, Simpkin that started in there. It's Greenwood who's played a lot of footy. First possession, cough up and Geelong go again. So they've got to be tougher. They've got to be more demanding on each other and they've got to be more competitive and they've got to work harder at their midfield craft.
That must be hard, though, with the coaching scenario. I'm not giving them an out completely.
That is a simple grab the ball, hold on to it, be tough with it and don't cough it up and allow Geelong...
But they've lost their coach. Alistair Clarkson's return, just get to the nub of the situation here, has been handled with kid gloves. So he wasn't at the game, is that right, Matthew? Even though he's been edged back in. I think he was watching the under-18s game, which is obviously having an eye on the future. Is it probably getting to the point where just stick with Brett Ratton now until the end of the season?
Well, I don't know, Caro. Maybe, I don't think they gained too much by bringing Alistair back now, really. But what worries me is he was the hope. He was the saviour for a club that you had nothing else really to sell. And so unless Alistair can get back to the Alistair we've known and loved and one of the great coaches of the modern era, it's just hard to know where they're going, just what Kane showed. They've now lost 14 in a row, haven't really looked like winning a game of football for so long. You look at Simpkin, LDU, Sheasel and Wardlaw, and I'm sure they've got others that they say they might like, but everyone else has got good young players too, but they just don't know how to win. They've got older players who are all leaving as well, yet Clarkson was the hope. I don't know, unless he can suddenly move on from this and get back and be banging tail and energise himself.
Yep.
That was my criticism at the time, Caro, was he was sold as that, the hope, and he was going to be the saviour.
Certainly financially,
but he was never going to be.
But they didn't know what was coming.
Of course they didn't. But even when there wasn't the distraction like there has been, and when he wasn't struggling, I mean, he was never going to be the one that was going to turn it for them.
Are you concerned, Caro, about Clarko coming back?
Yeah, look, I mean, of course I'm concerned about him, and I'm concerned for him. It's devastating to see someone who was, the towering figure of coaches struggling the way he is and having gone through what he's gone through. And I really feel for North Melbourne because they've invested so much in him, not just but financially. As we said, both he and Todd Viney are probably commanding about 1.4, 1.5 million in a club which has, not a lot to pay. And obviously soft cap is a massive issue. So it's just difficult to know whether he can come back. And I say again, as we've said last week, if he does come back, he needs more help. He needs more people around him and less of the responsibility on himself.
Their opponents breeze past them on the weekend. Lordy, on radio last week, you said, I think I've seen enough that Geelong can't win the flag. There were a couple of comments after that win against North Melbourne, one from Chris Scott, one from a man he knows very well, Ross Lyon, that said something different.
Look, seriously, we are very confident that if we play our best footy, we're the danger.
To me, and I've seen Geelong building, I think if they get in and they have all their personnel, I think their best is still the best.
I love that from Chris Scott because he's selling that to his players, his fans, but probably more so I hope Zach Tui's sitting beside him and everyone else. But I need to still see a lot more.
So you don't quite agree with Ross? Their best is their best?
No, I don't. No.
A big statement after beating North Melbourne too.
Yeah. And,
no offence.
And they'll get on a good run at GMHBA, but still the jury's out on them.